Last week I thought, I'll make sure I have them.
Ready to go? All right.
I think they're all in there.
I will call this a public hearing to order for October 26, 2021. Have an agenda for the public. We do. What is the quarry ordinance,
Cemetery,
and the
aircraft,
traffic?
and emergency management.
And the first one on there is the, just on here on the PDF is the cemeteries ordinance.
Cemetery. Quarry.
Cemetery first.
Aircraft. Okay.
We have something from Ellen regarding cemeteries for each of you.
Sure.
Is this new stuff that we didn't have in there, or is it?
Yeah, thank you.
I'll just tell you briefly, the planning commission was working on cemetery ordinance. When we were asked by the select board to work on the home occupation issue, so we just sort of stopped, so we never finished, we never voted on it. But that's the last language that we were considering, because there is a state statute regarding cemetery care and lack of disturbance. It's supposed to be a 25-foot setback from any burial site, not just a town cemetery, but any burial site, private cemetery, things like that. The ordinance is big and thick. I gave Eric a copy for the cemetery committee. Banner on the planning board comes to the planning commission meeting because he's very good at distilling things and editing things, and that's his distillation of the most significant parts of that statute to hopefully incorporate into an ordinance. And I spoke with Eric on the cemetery committee about this. This is not trying to derail what they're doing. I very much respect what they're doing, but I'm concerned about the cemeteries that are not marked and are private, and the burial grounds that may not even have headstones of some of the island's ancestors. So I just want to see something in the ordinance that protects them.
If it's a state statute, then it would cover us too, right?
It does, yeah.
So do we need to, I mean,
It wouldn't-
if we add this now, we have to have another public hearing for it, don't we?
Mhm.
As part of the process, and that's what it's okay. and it's
Well, I
part of
mean,
the
yeah, I'm
process.
just asking, like, we can't vote on it if we do add these things into it.
Right.
Yeah, we just, cemetery committee just met and they authorized me to, see what Ellen was proposing, and it looked fine. But also we felt where this is kind of a, touchy subject with the rules at the cemetery, because it covers what people can and can't put, things like that. That the cemetery committee would actually like when this gets added, if it could be put in the wind, so the townspeople could see what's being proposed and have a chance to look at it, and so that they could come to another hearing anyway, have their input.
Okay.
So, desire,
So just this private cemeteries, that's the section you want added into the ordinance.
Yeah,
Okay.
this 25-page document is the main state statute for
Okay.
cemeteries. So it's huge.
Wow.
I
So,
think they were talking the whole ordinance, but that section needs to be included in a revised version of the ordinance that was presented on.
And then F, that it would just move everything down to F through HH, is that what it means at the bottom? That's what I assumed.
Potentially, I think.
It says it at the bottom of the page, it says F through HH to be changed. to-
Yeah, I don't-
So I just assumed that every head
Yeah, we don't
after
have
that
that.
would just be.
Copy to that, so.
Can I borrow yours? I'll go make another one. I'm sorry. Sorry, so me and Andy can
So-
call.
if
I
this
mean, I
is,
have no problem with those.
I have no problem adding it either. If it's in the main statute, do we necessarily have to, like Jake mentioned, do we have to have it in our ordinance? Or we already covered under, because if we do add it in, then we can't vote on this one, and we have to have another
Right.
public hearing, which if that's what
Which, I
people want to do, that's fine, but
I mean, if it's in the statute, it's already there as a law, but it doesn't hurt to, in the ordinance, if we are creating a new ordinance, this is a new one, so
Yeah.
it should go through.
We don't
It's
already
fair.
have a cemetery ordinance?
Nope.
okay.
Really?
I know.
We have every other ordinance under the sun. But we don't have a cemetery
I
Um,
thought
ordinance.
this was a change in.
No, of the ones on for the public hearing, most of them are.
Well, I knew the
new.
The quarry one was getting changed, but the aircraft one was new.
So I mean, it doesn't hurt to reference that there is a statute, you know, like even our land use ordinance, a lot of places where it references statute.
I mean, you
A lot
can
of
be
the
more
ordinances
strict for
do.
state statute, but you can't be less strict for
Right,
state
right,
statute.
right.
So, I mean,
And I'd also suggest that if the planning commission goes through, at some point when they're going through it, to reference the setback in the table we have in the land use ordinance that lists the setback from certain things, edge of a roadway, high water mark, wetlands, and maybe include cemeteries in that table, so it shows up. So if someone comes for a building permit,
Right,
you probably assure they aren't grabbing the cemetery ordinance.
that's a good idea.
But to have it in both places might be really helpful to make sure it isn't getting missed.
Right.
Instead of relying on staff or property owner or whoever to know that there's a statute out there not referenced anywhere. So it doesn't hurt to just kind of put it in both places.
Okay.
I agree.
Eric?
Yeah, and everything we put in that, we took other towns' ordinances for their cemeteries and basically took it from there. So these are things that exist in other places. I mean, the selectmen wanted to come up with something, so.
Okay. All right, so I guess at this point,
Just table it.
just table it, we'll add it, and then we'll have another public hearing on the new ordinance, the updated ordinance.
If I could, so there was towards the end, it's like I was kind of at some point kind of creating a standard ordinance template for just as we create them or put them in so that they're kind of similar formats.
Yep.
And a lot of them have these sections in ordinances generally. You're gonna create an ordinance, usually there's a part about if you don't follow this, here's gonna be a penalty, if you can't agree on, or, you know, if there is something. How amendments are made, who enforces these things. So I don't know if we want to build that out. It wasn't generally drafted, I don't believe, in what I had copied over. So I don't know if we want to think about that or have proposals for that at this point, or if, maybe, I don't know, maybe the cemetery committee had talked about the enforcement and the penalties potentially for any of that.
No, we really, figure that comes out of our, our expertise of jurisdiction or whatever. I mean, we just came up with something for you guys.
So are you, Andy, do you want to add these sections into each of the new ordinances, new or updated, or?
All the quarry ordinance had
thank
an
you.
enforcement in the,
That one
it
does.
does have a fine thing in it.
Yeah, I know that, but does it have section 5 through 9? Yes,
Not 5 through 9, no.
because if we're gonna, I mean, I'm not against standardizing ordinances, so it is easier to check things. If we're gonna do that to all of them, we're gonna have to table all of these and then come back again, right?
Potentially, if you want to have them in there. I mean, I don't know to what end we put an ordinance in place without having any kind of enforcement.
Well, yeah, we
I mean,
should,
it's gonna be kind of, it's kind of like more of a policy in that sense,
right,
but,
but we want these to actually have teeth, for lack of a better word, right?
I guess it's a question more for.
It's just a
you or the
policy,
folks
then
at the hearing,
people
yeah.
can choose to follow it or not. If it's an ordinance and there's enforcement, there's ways to enforce and penalties, then it is an actual ordinance.
Wouldn't it be easiest to have something that provides an enforcement mechanism for the whole municipal code? There's one sentence somewhere in the municipal code that says, if you violate any of this municipal code, you're subject to blank. And then it's done for everything.
Yeah, we'd have to create the municipal code. I mean, I'm familiar with some of them as like one document, right? And there's chapters with it, like a statute, right? You've got different chapters of statute. Right now, ours are all set up as just separate ordinances. It's not like in like one code, if you will, with multiple chapters in it. So I mean, yes, you could do that, but it doesn't exist right now. Right now, they're just individual ordinances with each spelling out their own. We could still come up with a standard for each one. Unless the statute dictates that defines different, some, like land use, it says very clearly in land use violations what the bookmarks are for violations, for fees for violations, and it might not exist in the statute for cemetery or the fireworks statute, but we could, if we wanted to, as a town, think about a kind of a general, fee fine for those types of enforcement matters.
So what are you suggesting then? What do we, what are we gonna, I mean, what do you want to do? What are our choices right now to do?
Well, for the cemetery
This
one,
one
we're gonna
is
have
gonna
to
have to
table, it,
wait.
yes. If we decide to vote on the others,
If they don't have that in there,
then we wouldn't be adding in the standard
Right.
sections about enforcement, penalties and
so
whatnot.
that,
If they're not
if the-
specifically spelled out.
right. So this one just has to be tabled and we have to figure out what the wording is gonna be, you mean, or,
Well, they want this section added in,
right,
but Andy's also suggested that we add in those other sections.
Enforcement
Right.
standards.
Right.
but,
Now, I could look through, if you would like, I can look through other ordinances, propose additional language, or if it's something you'd like the cemetery committee to look at further and propose something, or I can just propose based on what some of our other ordinances
Yeah.
have.
I mean,
Um,
it shouldn't have to be too complicated, I don't think.
Right, it's just not in there right now.
Right.
If you wanted in there, it's something we can add to the next version of it.
Okay,
It looks
So-
like from that the penalties for the cemetery ordinance look like they're the same for the regular land use penalties. So I'm no expert at this. That's at the end of the cemetery ordinance. Does that look familiar to you, Andy? It's at the bottom, and then it continues on the other pages.
It may, I can take it and look at it afterwards. This page here doesn't really say what it is, what the fine is.
If you go to the turn the pages. Like $5,000 per instance, not to exceed $25,000. I think that's the same for most of the land use violations.
Yeah, code enforcement of land use and ordinances. So if we want to use that standard language, we can do that. I know. Like, there's other ordinances we have that are different. So if we want to standardize that, as Banner was suggesting, on the enforceability part, the severability part, we could do that if you want. And start doing that going forward when ordinance changes come up.
Okay. That's fine. All right, so we're gonna table the cemetery and then update it and then have another public hearing on that specific one. Is that, we in agreement on that? All right. So move on to the next one. Is it the quarry is the next one?
Mhm.
All right. That is a new ordinance, correct? It is not, is updated?
The quarry isn't
It's
updated.
an updated
It
one, all right.
currently exists. The items in red are new.
Okay.
They're pretty basic. The sections in black there, under section 4 is what it had.
see this one is,
Clear violation. I mean, it's been so long since we read it.
I
don't
know,
remember.
but it would seem that would be more what we want for the cemetery one, right? You know,
Right, but we can address that.
yeah, I'm just saying, I think $5,000 is a little exorbitant.
Well, I guess it would depend on the violation.
Mhm.
And any comments from anyone in the crowd on the updates to the quarry ordinance? Anyone?
Um, Yeah, no, I have no comments. We've been through this over it many times.
Okay. And you have to remind me, do I have to make a motion or do we just?
Just in the hearing, I don't believe there's any motions in the hearing. It's just acknowledging opportunity to present questions, comments, changes. If there's no changes and the hearing closes, then it has the opportunity, if the board desires, to push it forward for warrant consideration to put on a special town meeting warrant.
Okay.
And then we have to have a special town meeting
To
when
adopt
the time
it.
comes to have the voters that are present vote on it.
Okay. Are we gonna want to make any changes to this in line with the
I
cemetery?
know,
ordinance, or-
I don't, there's one question I had, there was someone was ice fishing and they had a fire on
Mhm.
at the quarry and it made a big mess with the
At
ash and
Booth.
everything, and that's not specifically spelled out in here, although it says no other pollutants shall be brought in. I mean, ash is a pollutant, am I not correct? I mean, do we need to state in there that,
You shouldn't have fires on the quarries. and-
like even when the quarries, no, I mean, is that that should be in some fire standard, right? If you don't have a fire permit, then you can't have it anyway.
Well, there's an expectation
Presumably.
to get a permit for the burn.
But I mean, you can't get a permit for town property to burn something unless you're a town employee or something, I would assume, so.
Right.
I mean, I would just, that was the only thing that was brought up to me, was because that was an issue. When people first started going to the quarry, there was a lot of soot up there that kids were crawling through.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't need to be added, if that's already,
Oh,
should be kind of state,
I wouldn't think we need to. be
that's
that
what I thought, because
specific.
in section A, it says no pollutants, which that would, not just soaps and shampoos, but anything.
Seems like the sheriff could also arrest somebody for having a fire on city property.
That's kind of what I
Right.
said too.
Yeah.
I just,
I think we'd be covered with that, so,
but I have no other questions about it. So.
all right. And so, no, let's move on to the next one. What's the next one? Aircraft, all right, this one I know is there.
yes. I'm sorry, I misled you on the last one. I went, I'm just quoting.
That's okay.
I mean, it basically is pretty new. Most of it is, but it isn't.
Could you spell out fines?
I thought it was
Yep, 2,500, okay. All right. Are there any comments, questions on this ordinance?
Just one comment. There was a fascinating program on TV about 12 companies in the United States, maybe around the world, I forget, that are making personal electric helicopters that are designed for personal use. So you can, for surprisingly little money, you will be able to buy a electric helicopter. And I think it's just a matter of time before they come to Vinalhaven, because there's some wealthy folks on the island who probably would love to have a helicopter to go to Camden with.
Right. It should cover that,
I
but
was thinking the aircraft definition should cover, it says any device capable of
It
carrying one or more
totally
person.
covers it. I'm just saying, you're in time. You're just in time.
okay. All right. All right, if there are no comments, questions, and we can move on to the next one. The last one is the emergency management ordinance of the town of Vinalhaven.
So this one Mark had drafted, it's the last version of it was was approved in 2009, and so it's 12 years past at this point, and so some of it was just updating, acknowledging, newer policies. It's a new format, so there's not a strike through change version. I just included both the old version and the new version.
Okay.
This was, I think, also one that came forward earlier at one point because we had such a delay, and I just put it back on there again.
I'm sure if Mark updated that, I would be fine with all those changes.
Yeah, I would not question the fact that he probably has his T's crossed and I's dotted on.
I would agree with that. This is the old one. This is the new one.
Yeah, the old one's just the first 2 pages.
Okay.
Yep, 2009.
Okay.
So some of like what this would cover is, if there's a local emergency, something the state, if a big hurricane hits the main coast, the state's likely to declare its own emergency. But if something happens, an ice storm cripples, or we get a big rain event and we got major washouts, and we've got to consider declaring our own local emergency, that kind of outlines how that works and, your involvement in that, where our responsibilities, our duties end, start and end.
Okay.
Didn't we have a meeting one time on that?
We had an
I just-
ITV course or something.
Yeah.
I
like
just
that.
did a Zoom.
There's the training.
Yes, I
yeah.
just did the
So
Zoom
because
training.
like if we have to,
Who's
if we
who's on-
show up first, then we can tell people what to do. And then if Mark's there and he has to take over for someone else, then he
Right.
steps up, it's all
Yes.
spelled out in this, but I do remember that.
That was
thing.
Yes.
quite a
And I
while
was just saying,
ago,
well, I'm
right?
just not gonna show up and hope that someone else is there that knows more than I do.
All right, if there are no questions or comments on that ordinance. That was it for the ordinance, correct?
It's for the ordinances, and it's just the potential road closures for winter maintenance.
Mhm.
All right. Is that it? So,
It's the same list we've used every year, isn't it? As far as I can tell.
I think so.
Largely,
Have you seen any, had any feedback? Or-
Nobody's here to,
No, but I mean, have there been any emails to it? I haven't seen anything or anyone saying that they didn't agree with this list.
One second,
sorry.
So, go ahead, Wes.
I have a property at the end of Bayview Cemetery Road. I'm working with Jen Desmond to buy it. It would, I think she would like to get access to it.
that's a town road.
It's, and I think often you close roads when there's nobody living there in the winter. But
So there will be someone living there this winter?
I believe so.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, I used to plow that road, that was on our roof, it was a very easy stretch to plow,
Okay,
you know, so there shouldn't be any concerns,
okay.
especially with the pickup truck now. we can do it
Assuming we
one
have
time.
anybody to do the plowing.
Okay, well, if someone's gonna be living there, then obviously at the town road, then we'll have to plow it, so.
Right.
um,
So there.
Otherwise, the rest, when do they want to close them, is, I guess, is my question.
No, they just don't plow them.
They just won't, oh, that's it, there's nothing, we don't.
Well,
There's
we
no,
just-
there's no
winter
thing-
maintenance.
We don't
yeah.
put any ropes or anything like that. Okay.
No,
All right,
Dean Lane,
And
I know who, where it is and who it is, but nobody's here to. Have we done maintenance on that road? If they
Just
didn't, they
do
fit,
ditching on the, like
on the
over the
top.
hill, yeah.
so. If we can close it, but if we've done work on it,
It doesn't matter if we've done work on it or not. If no one's down there, we don't have to plow. We're not closing the road. We're just not.
Yeah.
I know, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, what I mean is, that there is a post down there. So.
A year-round house?
No, but sometimes there's nobody here to contest it, the caretaker or whoever. So if we don't want, if we don't want to have to plow it, we don't have to, if nobody's here to dispute it, right?
Yeah, I remember, I think it was last year, or the year before, right after we'd done that work on there, that, I mean, that particular year, the property owner, at least one, I think it's just the one. One of them had said, you know, that they weren't coming up that year. I don't know if it's changed or not, but I mean, they acknowledged, they knew that it was a seasonally maintained road. and-
Right. And when I said the 30-year thing, remember we had that discussion when somebody we wanted to close a road and,
That's a discontinuance.
right, and Carl said, well, we put that culvert in, and so
Mhm.
if there's any maintenance at all on a town-owned road within the last 30 years, right?
And that's in terms of the consideration of a discontinuance, separate from this.
Doesn't
winter
have
ma-
anything to
winter
do with
maintenance.
winter maintenance, okay.
I mean, you might remember a few years ago, we had to go to in front of the county commissioners
Yeah.
because we had closed what we had for a long time, the swimming pool hill and
Right.
beyond. In that particular year, there was some significant projects that had to be done that winter and. had to
We
go
got
in front of the-
significant feedback on that, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly.
So this is more about access and, you know, acknowledging the challenge of stretching the resources we have in some of these places, and if there
Right.
isn't anyone.
Well, I would be in favor of not worrying about Dean Lane.
I'm fine with this list. If we need to keep Bayview Cemetery Road because someone's living there year round, then that's what we'll do. So,
I agree.
any other comments, questions from anyone? Okay,
That was it for the hearing.
all right, then I will call this public hearing. Closed, finished, over. Those are welcome, everyone's welcome to stay if you wish. If you want to leave, you are free to do that as well. Thank you for coming. Now start the Board of Selectmen's meeting for October 26, 2021. Roll call, Jake Thompson, Leslie Dyer, myself, Ken Alley, Eric Gasparini is absent. Andy Dorr, town manager, Susan Bunker, deputy town clerk. Minutes, approve the minutes from the October 12th meeting.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
I found one typo. I did. I have, it jumped right out at me. It's, on section 11. B noted that boat trailers are building up again at the Fist plant. parking lot.
Oh, yeah.
My
It could
goodness.
be fisty occasionally down there,
Yeah.
Let's hope
but
not.
I think it means fish. So that's my only
Thank you.
thing I
Nice
found.
catch. No
Alright.
pun intended.
Yeah, exactly.
Once that edit has been made, I move we approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
Seconded by Jake Thompson. All those in favor? Number 3, approve and sign the treasurer's warrant number 17, so moved.
Second,
All those in favor? Do we have any additions, subtractions? All right, I move we approve the agenda as presented.
second.
All those in favor? Communications. Seeing none, we'll move on to 6, speakers from the floor. Speakers from the floor. Going once, going twice. Move on to number 7. 7A, appointment resignation, 7A1, Housing Committee. We have a report.
I thought we had a request to add, take someone off and add someone last time and we didn't have it on the agenda, right? Someone said it at the end, I think.
There was a
Oh,
new,
yes.
someone else had reached out this past week and sent us a letter saying that they're interested in serving on the committee.
Do we have potentially 2, right, because we weren't able to access them last time? is that
Or
right?
I can't remember if we added them. Was it in the minutes?
Yeah, we
Oh, yeah,
added
we added
Ethan Warren.
Ethan, yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
who's the,
Darlene Beckman?
okay,
And we have a seat available, I assume.
Yeah, you know, and you guys got room for more, right?
Yeah.
I mean.
Is that what, you said you had something to say, what was it
Well,
that
I was
you?
gonna make a little report, but I didn't realize you had business to do in terms of adding and subtracting numbers beforehand.
so we have one up.
Oh, no,
Darlene, somebody wanted to join. the-
Darlene Beckman.
Darlene Beckman.
I'd make a motion that we appoint Darlene Beckman to the Housing Committee, as long as there's a seat, like you said. so.
Second,
All those in favor?
They're growing.
Okay. All right, let's do, all right, so 7A2, Planning Commission.
Oh, wait, I'd like to make a report from the housing committee.
All right, we will do that. 7A1, Housing Committee report.
Okay, it's, be quick, we did get the assessment completed by Mary Terry, our consultant. I don't know, have you all received copies from Andy?
I haven't seen one.
No, my understanding was the commission, that the committee was gonna review it with her, and if they were prepared, I didn't know that we were sharing that quite yet with the
Okay,
board.
yeah, well, we're having a meeting next Monday in this room at 5:30 with Mary and on Zoom to go over it with her. It's big, it's complicated, it's full of graphs and numbers and percentages. Frankly, it's hard to understand. I only read it once. I'm gonna keep reading it and hopefully understand it better. But I think with her, we'll have a better understanding of the numbers and the issues. And then we'd like for you all to see it and discuss it and see, depending on whether it makes sense to try to bring it out publicly and talk about it publicly. I think you all will have to read it and decide what you think. But the committee would like to use this information to then move forward and try to come up with some solutions, including zoning ordinance changes. And we have a partner in Jason Bird at Penquist, who's very interested in helping with housing issues out here. I think there are other opportunities. I spoke with Eric, who's on the board of the Land Trust. And I happened to see Lucy McCarthy this morning on the ferry. She said the Land Trust is interested in helping with the housing issues out here. And I understand the Community Development Corporation might be interested in helping. So I think there's potential for partners. And we also want to look at the town-owned land and see what town-owned land there is that might be available for housing opportunities.
You said next
Monday.
The
week from
the
yesterday,
1st of November, obviously,
Right.
right?
Right where you're sitting.
And you said it will be on Zoom too, right? I just wanted to reiterate that,
Yeah.
if
And
anyone.
you'll make sure that that's working. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so 7A2 Planning Commission.
There
Report or
were-
just a report?
I guess you can have them do that. The report for the planning commission was under 7D, but you're welcome to entertain that now.
All right, let's just do that. Go ahead, Wes. Floor is yours.
Brought forward 6 things that we've worked on and are ready to go. We'd like to see go to a
Public
public
hearing.
hearing. It's sort of just the,
Sit down.
with that, there's a part of the ordinances that what's in red would be added and what's crossed out would be removed.
Does the damaged water must need some kind of state approval since it's on the water? No,
Not so much. I think the idea behind this, I think it was brought to us by Faye, that before a dock got repaired, she or whoever the CEO was would go to the site and kind of document what's there. As opposed, so somebody doesn't put it back twice as big as it was, kind of.
I'll take that one for Eric when he gets back. There's his name right on it.
Did you have an extra?
Yep, that was an extra.
Number, the first on the list here is to allow minimum lot size in the village overlay district, where a lot is accessed by both sewer and town water, that it could be 20,000 square feet rather than 40,000.
Okay.
The
so
40
that's going from an acre to half an acre, basically.
Yeah, I mean, when the 40,000 was put in, there was no town sewer, which was problematic. Andy asked at the meeting last week what the average lot size was in the village, and they're pretty small. And I think most of them are 0.15 to 0.20 acres.
Okay.
Um,
Had you gotten that number yet?
What's that?
Had we gotten that number yet?
Have we gotten that number yet?
The average lot size in that area on those properties? We mentioned at the planning commission meeting, do we know what the number is? You're saying you think it's generally between this point and this point. I'm just saying, for the sake of the ordinance and considering the change, do we know what the actual number is?
What the average is? I mean,
Yes.
um,
If you were to take 100 properties and they range from 0.15 to point whatever you had thought you'd mentioned, that's an average. So I think generally, I mean, just for the sake of knowing, like, what's the number we're choosing? It very well could be half an acre. I'm not saying it's not. I just, do we know what it is? So someone asks us, what's the basis for changing it? Is the average size a quarter of an acre? Maybe it's half an acre. I mean,
one of the largest lots in town is the Moses Webster house, and it sits on a half an acre. I mean, it has a huge backyard. It was 91 feet on one side and 224 on the other. So, I mean, allowing a few lots that happen to be larger to be divided. I also think that 20,000 is what the DEP has for a suggestion in their main ordinance. So in North Haven, the village lots that have access to town water and town sewer have a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet.
okay.
I have a question. Brett, did you take into consideration, like the Moses Webster house, has quite a few bedrooms, if you take, if you divide that lot in half, someone were to divide it in half, would that have the ability to do parking?
The Moses Webster house is on a half acre, which is what we're proposing the minimum lot size be.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And it is one of the largest lots in town.
And Max said that he was going to look at, did you see that email, Andy, he was gonna look at something with the GIS and the lots and the town sewer and town water and try to figure out, but was he also gonna figure out the sizes of the lots?
Do we have would we have tax maps that we could quickly look, if you look at the tax maps, you just jumps out
I would
at you.
assume that you could find them all with the, if you knew the map, you could go and look at all on map 6 and they would show lot size on all of them. I mean, it's on every tax bill I ever get what the lot size is. so.
But if you had a picture of the town tax map, I mean, it's just really obvious how little most of the lots are.
Most of them are less than 20,000 square feet, like we just said,
Oh, I mean, most of them are
less than
I
10,000.
don't know if that's helpful or not.
not really. Is there a?
I mean, there's a great big one over there, there's stuff online, but it doesn't tell you the actual number. I guess my point is just for the sake of, asking the commission, when you picked 20,000 square feet, it just, is that, what is the, not arguing that it shouldn't be, again, just what is the foundation that we explained at the public hearing for the proposed change? Is it because the average lot size is in fact a half an acre, maybe the average lot size is less than a half an acre, and you're still opposing it? to
What's
be
a lot
bigger
less?
than-
I mean, the average, I mean, again, I've been selling land in the village for 36 years and Buddy Scoob's property is 0.28 acres. It's a pretty good sized lot. Where,
So this isn't really gonna, you said there's only 1 or 2 properties that this
well,
would affect.
there's 8 to 10 maybe, that
Okay.
could be. I mean, Jack Littlefield's property is big enough, but I don't think he has any interest in it. What brought this forward was Becky Jameson has 1.1 acre. She'd like to sell her house and build a little house up and back. It's kind of, it'll help a little bit for year-round housing. Not a lot, but a little. I mean, I'm reluctant to suggest we go to 10,000 square feet. I mean, really,
No, that's, yeah.
I mean, there's very little visual impact with going to,
What did you say the state standard is? Do they not have one? It's all town to town. You said North Haven was 20,000, but I can't remember if you
well,
said.
I think that's the state recommended
It's in
lot
the-
size for,
I know once in the shoreline zone, the state has minimum sizes that they can be, and that towns can choose to make it larger. Off the top of my head, I don't know what the shoreline zone one is. I mean, anything that would still be in the shoreline zone couldn't be less than that number
Right.
unless we get special approval from the state.
in the future, I mean, someone may decide that we could make them a little smaller. Right? But, I mean, I just think this is a very,
This seems like it would be fairly non-controversial, I would think.
I would think, yeah.
Half acre is not small.
And it's only if it has town water and sewer, which isn't a lot of lots that it's gonna.
well, it only affects the village overlay district.
Right.
Right.
And not all of it has access to town water and sewer. Much of it does, but there's,
Well, I mean, we still have to put this out to public hearing at
Mhm.
some point. I
Well,
mean, we
but-
already have to have one on the,
Cemetery.
But
The
there again, you
cemetery.
have to think, about easements and such that aren't granted by the water district and the sewer. You can't have an easement to go across somebody else's property.
like if Becky were to divide hers, she would retain a right of way, including utilities,
Right,
to go along the edge
okay.
of.
I mean, I thought that would have to be part of somehow, I would think, would have to be part of the ordinance, right? Or,
Well, I mean, there isn't any requirement for that for any lot. I mean, nothing in the zoning that says you can't sell a lot unless you give a right of way to it, kind of.
Wouldn't that be an individual sale?
No, I think our ordinance does reflect that you can't create a lot that doesn't have access to a road.
unless it's on the water.
Well, no, again, it's,
So when you could sell an island if it didn't have a road, that's why I seen on
I
the
mean,
water.
what we're proposing to do
Right,
is to
Jake.
change one number in the zone.
no, I understand that, but when you said that, like for Becky, for example, I mean, that's a wonderful thing for her to be able to, that she might be able to do. I'm not just trying to discourage that. I just want to make perfectly clear that that it's understood that you can't grant easements for the water sewer. It has, over somebody else's
No, as
property.
long as you own it, you can do it. I mean, that's again, if Becky divided it in half and didn't retain access for herself, she couldn't build on it because it doesn't meet the standard. Doesn't have access to it.
Right. So I was just pointing that
Yeah.
out. Alan has a question.
Sorry.
Go
to
go ahead.
move over. Will the town, extend the water and sewer if a new lot is developed in the town? Is that automatic or how
You
does
have to
that
pay
work?
for a main extension.
Like that person just pays for it, they don't deny it.
No, that wouldn't be denied, like
Okay.
down in that area, for example, the sewer did not go past that corner.
Even all the town water goes
Town water goes
Down
all the way
to
down,
the fork in the road. I'm pretty sure I saw him
Right.
working there this summer.
but the sewer
Doesn't.
line
Sewer
didn't,
stops at Becky's.
yeah, because of money apparently ran on funds. So if somebody wants to have a
Sewer.
sewer
They have
at
to
their
pay
house,
for
they
it.
have to pay for the main extension. And if they could get neighbors to come in with them, that would cut down
Yeah.
considerably, but
I'd heard that that Jerry Dowdy and Millie Martin were considering paying to have the sewer
right.
brought up.
Yeah, because I think there's problems for her putting a septic system in there.
I think it's gonna be pretty expensive, so.
Yeah, we need customers though, so let's encourage people to do main
I mean, I
extensions.
think, Indian, East Boston Road was part of the original design for the
Was.
sewer, but it was cut back because of funds. But,
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably on.
Quite a few different areas were cut back because of that. Unfortunately, but anyway, certainly we need to ask questions and whatnot before we want to move forward, so you understand why we're doing this, right?
Yeah.
Where is the village, where does this cover that specifically? Does anyone-
Where the
someone tell me?
town,
Where the sewer
Where's
is
the
where
sewer
the,
end?
where the water
at
district,
my house.
it goes
At your
from,
house, and then it sounds like it stops before Jerry and Sue's.
At Becky's.
no,
Yeah.
we're talking about, no, the village overlay is where water main,
Yeah, there's in the zoning, there's a very specific, they list all the lots that are part of the village overlay.
Okay,
Sometimes it's the whole tax map, other times it's certain lots on a
Right.
tax map.
but basically it goes like down to where Clayton, down at East Boston Road, down there, and then around, and then down around the Pond Street,
Yeah.
and around the sands,
yep.
and then up to
Stops at my house.
up to
Easily.
her house, yeah. Does
Or
Greg
it's
have
like
a,
No,
he has a well, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
I have town water and sewer and the orchids too, and that's the end of
Yeah.
it.
But you're saying this change from 40 to 20,000 would only affect maybe 8 to 10 properties?
Yeah.
Okay. Which then, if we did this, then they could take that and split it in half essentially and sell a portion or build something there.
Right.
Be mindful that it would apply to maybe 8 or 10 properties. The word effect might be more broad than that, but with the butters and whatever, but
True.
it's an effect.
Yeah, but not everyone's gonna split their property in half either.
No, but generally with land use ordinance, it's just how things change matter to abutters, and
Yeah,
exactly.
just be mindful that it's not necessarily just the 8 or 10 properties that have the ability, if this changes the split, but that's why we do the hearings, so.
Yeah, because somebody might say, well, I don't want a house next, I don't want that to happen,
Right.
so.
That's why it's important to understand the foundation for why the proposed changes is a pretty significant one, albeit it might only be the fact that we don't actually know how many it might be. You know, it might be helpful to have that actual number instead of a guess. It would,
Exactly.
in my mind, it would be helpful to know what the actual average lot size is for properties in the village overlay district that have access to town water and sewer. We can get the village overlay pretty quickly. Then we got to cross-reference the water district billing and the sewer billing with the village overlay tax map and lot. So it's not hard, it's just not easily at our fingertips to get the actual number with the
Right.
acreage, but we can do it.
I mean, part of it is if you just look at the tax maps,
Yeah.
you can lay, I mean, I have tax maps, you know, on sheets this size with the lots marked on it.
Well, I would suggest that you get the number and come back with it. That'd be helpful.
You know, it'd be probably helpful for hearing. I mean,
Yes.
So people could understand.
Yep.
Again, having the maps, I think, you know, seeing the map, I think is more helpful than telling somebody what the average lot size is. You know, I mean, it just
Well, that
seeing,
would add to, yeah, that would be helpful as well to have the map.
I think it would help to have both,
Yes.
because someone's gonna, I think someone is gonna ask the question, how did you come to that number? So if we can say with
So,
assurance, that yes, this is the average lot size, of the village overlay, this is why we feel it makes sense to make this change.
I would assume that number two then, that some of the properties would be near the water to have the setback, the septic setback changed by 25 feet.
Vinalhaven currently is the only town in the state of Maine that has a different setback requirement for septic than the state standard, which is 100 feet.
Right.
Do you know why it was made that way?
Why it was added?
Why it was 125 feet?
To make-
Andy's
to
shaking
make
his head
it-
yes.
Well, you know, there's a perception that, you know, you gain more protection. I spoke with Brent Lawson, who runs the subsurface plumbing for the state of Maine and has, I think, for the last 20 to 30 years. He was surprised that it was different since it's the only one. He said it's much more important that the systems be installed correctly and inspected. Because, I mean, he says that extra 25 feet is a couple days before it runs overboard if it
If it's not-
malfunctions.
Right,
Now, and one thing that I've realized, like if you push the system back 125, it's gonna increase the number of sewerage pumps you have. Because people, if your house can be 100 feet from the water, and your septic's 125, you're probably gonna be pumping to it.
right.
And if the pump malfunctions, which they often do, then the sewage starts running. You know, so you're, you know, part of it is you're creating more problems by pushing the leach field back. I put in septic systems here for 12 years, and I'm pretty familiar with the issues. I mean, the thing that,
Well, I thought I guess I'm confused, because it says here that the lot size may be smaller if served by town water and septic.
that has nothing to do with,
So why are we, what's this? Is this
This
for
is-
the
this-
entire island then?
this is for the entire island for installing private septic systems.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a,
But isn't RM3, isn't it 125-foot setback in RM1? They're just different setbacks to build houses in different zones,
Right.
correct? Why can't we just say that the septic has to meet the minimum setback for the house, not change it all to 100 feet? Because if you had to build your house 125 feet away from the shore, why should you be able to put your septic 100 feet away? If we're saying that's
Well, then you
25
could-
feet resource
Well, then-
protected.
Well, then you could go gravity feed to the septic system. You know, the only systems I'm aware of that malfunction are ones that are put too far into the ground. You know, the state code puts the bottom of the septic a foot off of the high water table. And if you dig it down, it's a lot cheaper to put in, but it competes with the groundwater.
I think I need a little bit more information on that one. I agree with what you're saying, Jake. Doesn't, it's kind of like I have to build my house 125 feet, but I can put my septic in 100 feet. I don't,
Well, I
that,
know, but every other town in the state does that.
well, we don't
and they-
care, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that we are gonna do what other towns do because we're the only one that doesn't. I mean, are other towns gonna look at us and say, well, that, look, this is what they do, let's change ours? I mean, I think that's not a,
I know, but I'm
I
not,
understand you're presenting your.
okay, I'm not aware of any malfunction of the system that was 100 feet from the water. That if it isn't malfunctioning at 100, and I mean, I'm not sure that,
I just think I don't know, I
I
think,
mean,
we-
the state, the state keeps very good track of this. I mean,
sometimes, maybe, sometimes not.
it's a pretty small bureaucracy there. I mean, I worked with them for 12 years. They're really excellent to work with. They've backed off on a few things. They allow smaller leach fields than they used to because they've developed ones that work better. I mean, they're not, there's still quite a bit of conservation built into their rules.
Well, anyway, should we move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
I don't see any problem with most of those 6 things, or even that. I mean, is the permit thing a big deal? It's already 10 days. Would it be helpful for 14 days? Is that what the CEO is telling you or the planning board?
Well, it
For the
gives,
planning board.
Okay, well, I mean, it's already 10 days.
well, I mean, that means
If
that
you
the-
miss that one, then you just have to wait another month, all right? There's one every month, right?
and I mean, it's due in 2 weeks before the actual meeting and a week before the pre-meeting. So, it can be reviewed and you
So it
Code
gives the
enforcement
person more
officer
time to,
can ask for
Okay.
more information.
you think that was something that you guys,
That's what we've been practicing for
okay,
the last at least 2 years, is asking that the last Wednesday of the preceding month is when we have the permits. That gives us and that was in response to some concern the community had about getting notice in advance of the meeting. And so,
no, it's fine with me. I would just,
yeah,
was
that's
just
how we've
making-
been
I
doing
was
it.
just
We've been
making sure
kind of
that was
operating
something
outside
that-
of
that was,
the current
I mean,
permit.
it doesn't need to be more than that, does it? 2 weeks is fine.
I don't know that it needs to be. There's only a few exceptions in the ordinance where it needs to be more, like subdivision and maybe a couple others, but I think 2 weeks has generally been working pretty
In
well.
2 weeks, I mean, you're kind of in the middle of the month, so, I mean, it's, and things that require more review, I mean, the permit can be postponed for another month to ask for stuff. I mean, it's,
Yeah, no, I was just making sure that was something that was, that everyone was on board with. That was fine with me. That was the only question I had.
Can I ask what for unsafe vacant structures, what is that? What does that mean? I mean, I know what it means, but what's the?
well, this was brought to us, I believe, by the code enforcement officer, wanting the ability to deal with
To be able to condemn or whatever, I see.
unsafe
Yep, okay,
vacant structures.
yep,
And that'd be separate and outside of the state statute set aside for nuisance structures and dangerous. I mean, it's similar, but there's a slightly different.
I mean, I would assume that if there's something that's unsafe, we should definitely be looking into it. So, and if we don't have the power to, we should give the code enforcement officer
well, remember
or
when
the
we
town the
had
ability to,
the issue with the Star of Hope
yeah, with the glass breaking and stuff like that. Yeah.
and,
Pigeons and everything.
and
Well,
Number,
we can bring this, when we bring the cemetery, we can have 2 public hearings at the same time for both of these things. Presumably, when we have to redo it, does that sound all right with everyone? I mean, since we already have to the
Yeah,
cemetery, we might as well
cemetery one.
bundle this one in with it and
Yeah, like we did with the,
try and get it done at the same time. I'm not saying that we do it in 2 weeks, but when we do get this all, I mean, this looks fine, but we need the cemetery, you know, we need to do those issues at the end of the 5 standard things, so.
Hopefully we can do that in a month.
Yeah, I would think, but
Yeah.
we need to get those, the enforcement and all that stuff on the quarry, not the quarry, the cemetery ordinance. We need to figure that out first before we can have another public hearing, so it's gonna be
At least a month.
minute.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay, the number 3 is the demolition of structures that right now don't believe is a permit required to tear down a building. And part of the thought behind this is that some buildings get torn down that could have easily been moved and used. And I think of the house out on Lanes Island, the Bridges old house that was torn down. I've never spoken to the O'Keefe's, but they have 10 acres next door. And dragging their house to the next lot would have, the house was really sound,
Yeah.
just the people decided they want a new house.
Yeah.
But and it just requires a 30-day period, so if somebody came forward, I mean, I'm expecting that if someone's gonna pay to have a house taken down, and if the neighbor's willing to take it for nothing, it would,
Right,
everybody wins.
right. Yeah, I don't see any issue 3 through 6. I mean, it makes sense to me. Especially 5. I mean, if someone is gonna repair a damaged wharf, they can't build it back bigger than it was.
It's just,
so,
we're talking about having one visit there. You
Yeah.
Right.
Go and take some pictures and just
I
get an
agree.
understanding before
Right.
things are changed.
I just can't believe that state let you. I thought you had to have a permit to drive spiles and stuff like that, but I guess if they're already there, you can replace them without.
I mean, again, there are some state stipulations, but generally, if something is still 50% intact, you can repair it. I mean, you'd be wise to notify the state, just so you didn't go up against them. But,
And the code enforcement.
well, that's what we're
Right,
putting in here.
right.
The difference there is the state certainly has big interest and regulates activity on, over and above or reach the water resource. I think this generally applies. My understanding with this was that generally applying to residential structures, accessory structures on lots. In case someone wanted to, as Wes said, that's salvageable, or that's, it shouldn't come down.
Well, no, we're talking, well,
Number
Right.
5,
Mhm.
damaged wharves.
this one,
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about demolition of structures. too. Probably talked about the work.
okay, it was brought to us. And I thought it was represented that it was coming from the selectmen, that they wanted to require all permits to be completed within 2 years. In the shoreland zone, the state, I believe, requires that.
I thought it's already in the thing that you have to have a significant start within the first year, right?
First year, yeah, and then completed within 2, I think, right?
But that I
It's not
think,
written.
I think that's in the shoreland zone.
Oh,
And I think in the rest of the island, once you make a substantial start, you have the rest of your life to finish it.
is that,
And I mean,
That's what's in there currently, and I know I've mentioned it, Clay and I've talked about it, and we'd like to see that there be a sunset on permits that are
Yeah.
issued.
I would think 2 years
agree.
should be.
That should be plenty of time.
except, again, there's.
I mean, if there's
circumstances-
an issue, you could always come back and ask for an extension, correct?
You
I mean,
can,
that would.
but what if somebody says no? I mean, I guess it's,
Yeah. I mean,
again,
if
maybe
you have to have
that's-
50% or a significant start in the year, maybe you have to have 90% in 2 years or something. I don't know how you would
maybe
quantify
that's a
these
question,
things.
maybe it's a question for the public
It is
hearing.
possible to quantify.
what's that, Anna?
Oh, he was saying he's not sure how to quantify.
Like,
how
well,
much-
I'm not sure like
Right.
how much, like if 90% is enough in 2 years, if it's gotta be significantly started in one, like,
75% into or
Or yeah, like
90%,
90, that's
or-
what I'm saying. I'm not sure like what I know you can quantify if something's 90% done or not, but I'm just saying like, how should we quantify, you know,
How do you define it?
right? How do we define what percentage we want done in 2 years? If it's, I would think it should be
Done. That's
done
what I
in 2
think.
years or 90% done in 2 years at least, or something like that. I mean, I could see if there's an issue with, I mean, right now with all the stuff
gonna
coming,
say with
windows and stuff
COVID
like that,
and-
I mean,
It-
there could be an issue getting,
There could be an issue, getting it done in 2 years. Well, if there was
But I would-
extenuating circumstances.
I mean, but you should be able to get 90% of it done in 2 years, I would think.
Yes.
And
Wes, didn't we, wasn't this for the exterior? And it wasn't this, the idea was that the exterior would be hopefully completed within the permit period, and if it wasn't completed, you'd have to get another permit. You wouldn't be penalized, but you'd have to get another permit, and if the code changed within the interim, you had to meet the new code. or
Okay,
the
so
new-
the,
The new restrictions, so it would give people an incentive to finish, but
Finish.
we're
Right.
well aware, at least some of us are, like Wes included, of course, that some people are building something themselves, or some people have financial reversals, or illness, or lack of materials, and so we can't be penalizing people for trying to build themselves a house,
Right.
however they do it. So, but we understood through Fay that you, the select board, or the previous select board, were concerned about seeing a lot of unfinished buildings around town, and that was an eyesore. And so we were trying to come up with a way of, that's what I had heard.
I don't recall discussing it. But,
no, but I do think having the exterior done in 2 years, that seems.
Oh, no, I don't
seems
disagree, I just
reasonable, and then
don't-
you can
don't
finish the
recall
inside at your
any
leisure, that,
For the rest of your life.
right, yeah, that
Yeah.
seems more reasonable than the whole project being done in 2 years,
I
but
mean,
yeah,
that's
I
the-
could,
That's the basis of our land use ordinance, to make sure that things are cited in, certain distances and certain resources or properties or whatever. And so if you've got that footprint built, and you've got your structure built, if you haven't done the finished work on the inside, that's certainly different. We don't have internal building and energy codes adopted here, so if that day, when that day comes, that might be different discussion, but currently our biggest concern with the land use ordinance is making sure that it's,
like the porches and everything on the outside, the square footage of the house is completed in, or maybe not the volume of the house.
yeah, I don't
is
think it's
completed.
up to us to worry about what the inside is like.
No,
it sends our.
as long as,
assessor
I
out
mean,
there.
as long as the plumbing's up to code, I mean, there's certain codes for
Right.
the state of plumbing and electricity, but besides that, I mean, if someone wants to live in there without painting their walls, what do we care?
Right, I don't.
I mean, with porches, that's insurance company qualifications anyway. I mean, you can't just, you have to have railings and you have to have,
Right.
that comes with the insurance.
I mean, most of this is gonna apply to folks who are building, like you said, on their own, right, and aren't using financing, because if my experience with a construction loan, the bank says you have to finish in 2 years, so
Yeah.
if it's that case, they're gonna get it done anyway.
Yeah.
But if it's someone just doing it on their own with their own money, yes, you get the structure complete, you can take however long you want to finish the inside. I don't think anyone has a problem with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with the 2 years on that.
Yeah.
I was just wondering about,
Yeah, We're working on that. It isn't finished. so
okay,
we'll-
yeah, no, I was just kind of
continue.
curious, like how you quantify, like, the house was done, but if it's just the exterior, I'm fine. That sounds
Yeah,
very reasonable.
Okay, the other thing I wanted to bring up was, we were directed to address home occupations and commercial use in residential zones.
Mhm.
I mean, we have spent a great deal of time on it, but we haven't finished. It's like, there's the second half of the definition for home occupations, which is set up, it says uses similar to home occupations, which is what people are having trouble with.
I
It's
thought
just-
Andy had a pretty good idea when we were talking about this earlier about it has to be on, like, the home occupation in a residential zone has to be on a 2-lane road. Isn't that what you said? So it couldn't be, like if traffic was an issue or something like. is
Well,
that-
it's a lot more complicated than it first looked.
Yeah.
I mean, the language that's in there now came about when the planning board gave a permit to Jeff Moyer for a boat facility up on around the mountain, around the island road, which is zoned residential. And to make him sell his house and move up there seemed, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but the planning board gave him a permit without really the ability to do that. So the reason for that amendment in home occupation was to try to address situations like that.
Right.
And it, it's
For the
only,
most part,
it's only become a problem recently.
Like I said,
Well, the biggest problem that we had that came out of it had to do with there was two paragraphs. One is very similar to what the state uses in the shoreline zoning. With the exception of, they, I think, include the word parcel or property, and ours doesn't include that. We talked about that last
Yep.
week. But currently, and our definition is similar, our standard in the ordinance has a second paragraph that following what's, again, consistent with the shoreline zone, says uses similar to home occupations are allowed in RM1 districts, except that those portions of the RM1 in the shoreline zone must meet the definition of home occupation in the standards above, except that the residential requirement need not be met and a residential structure need not be present on the lot upon which the activity takes place. Such use may not employ more than 4 persons nor need. So I think that's what the board was seeing, is that contradiction. So it's a home occupation by definition. The first paragraph talks about, again, the home occupation, but then the second paragraph says you don't need a home, you don't need to live there.
right.
Right,
So
that's so confusing, because if it's a
It's ambiguous,
residential
to say the
use,
least.
But
you
the-
have to live there, but then it's saying you don't have to live there.
Right.
But the reason it was put in there was for people like Jeff, who, I mean, to my knowledge, no one has ever had a problem with his business being run up there. I mean, I've never heard anybody object to it. Kevin Moore, I expect, used the same wording to get the business he did up on Gates' Stretch. He doesn't live there. There are a couple apartments upstairs, but it's, I mean, we need something like that in the zoning, and that's what we're working on.
Okay.
Home occupation is pretty simple. But allowing commercial activity on the island is complicated. And so if you remove that second paragraph, it's, you have to provide some way of having commercial activity on the island.
Right.
And so that's yet to be solved.
That's what I was gonna say, and Banner said it so succinctly. And Chuck Gadzik pointed out, you can't just take away the second paragraph and people can have home occupations, traditional ones, and even expanded ones that aren't mentioned, like an accountant or a lawyer or somebody, providing services in their home. But there's got to be a way for people to have commercial businesses, but if they're having commercial businesses in a residential neighborhood, it has to fit with the residential neighborhood. It has to meet a much more criteria, much more scrutiny, and the planning board needs to have the standards, the actual standards, the parameters, which that application will have to meet in order for it to be acceptable and appropriate for that neighborhood. Like no glare or noise or scent or something beyond the property lines.
Isn't
Maybe
there
visual
something in-
screening. But this means that the planning board is going to really have to take an active role in making sure that it fits. And go on site visits and
Yeah.
have people there with a certain amount of expertise. If they don't have it themselves, then the person making the application for the permit will need to pay for someone to assist the planning board, because the planning board, like all of us on the planning commission and all these committees, are volunteers doing the best we can, but
Right.
mostly without any expertise.
Right.
So that's what we're wrestling with, and we have wrestled with it many times, and we even, well, I should say, I employed and Bessie Kong, who's married to John Walacheski. She had a land use planning business in California. And I sent her what we had done with the home occupation and the commercial permit that we wrote, and she said, look, this is, you're missing the standards, you're missing the parameters. This needs work, and so Andy's been trying to find someone to help us write some of these ordinances. They're so tricky and so important and so critical to this community and people's well-being and peace of mind, and knowing that, where they're living, that the standards will be upheld and that changes will be done thoughtfully and conscientiously and not haphazardly.
Right.
Yeah,
That's what we're working on,
Yeah, well,
amongst there are other things too, but I just wanted to
that's-
try to keep it as
In a
Yeah,
nutshell.
that one seems very tricky.
So do you want us to put these changes through the 1 through 6 into the ordinance now, or do you want us to wait until you worked on 1 and 2 down below?
well, when would you be going for, I mean, if there was going to be mean, having a public hearing on them probably makes sense.
Right.
And
Because I could see that the other two on there would be more controversial than some of the first six might be easier to.
I mean, these, especially, the home occupation, commercial use is gonna be pretty complicated. And
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think that's gonna take some time, so
I
I
mean,
think we
it-
should
I
probably
mean,
go with the
I mean,
first
it-
six.
I
mean, it
yeah.
might be a,
It's on hearing.
Yeah.
Yep.
With the cemetery hearing, I think we should.
The first 6 in the cemetery.
yeah, we should-
again,
we
these
should be
are
able to
just,
do
I just wanted to let you know the kind of things we're working on.
that. Yeah, no,
There's a number of others.
oh, yeah, I'm
Thank you,
sure.
Wes.
Just because we'll have to come back and do another public hearing.
Well, I mean,
Again, but
the land use ordinance is gonna need a public hearing. It probably should have had one yearly forever, and it hasn't had one since I've been on the board that I know of in 5 years,
I think it's
almost
been-
5
I think
years.
it's been 12 years.
Yeah, so I mean, how many
I
things
never
probably
remember
should have been changed in 12 years? We should probably try and update
Do it
some parts of it
annually.
every year. Like Wes said, he wants to come up and give us a briefing once a month or
right,
at his convenience. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what you brought up last
Sure.
week, but I think that's a good idea and we should keep on top, because I mean, the land use everywhere is ever changing, so
Right.
we shouldn't, stall it out like it has been.
I agree.
okay.
Gonna stop asking questions, but Andy is looking for someone to help us. So I'm just wondering if that's something that you all would authorize, and, if there are funds available to get a consultant to help us, especially with these trickier things like the home occupation and commercial aspects, to make sure we get it right.
Yeah,
As long as I'm not sure if we have the money in the budget this year, but perhaps we could put it in the budget for next year,
it should definitely
definitely.
be a line item added to the budget for next year if we don't have the funds available now. But I
Right.
agree, we're gonna need some expertise on this to get this right, so that we don't run into issues down the road with people applying for things and then getting denied, or getting it and then they do something that they weren't supposed to, and on and on and on. So, yeah, I think that will benefit everyone if we get some expertise.
When is
On
next
this.
year? Is that after June 1st or is that after December 31st?
The next budget year will be starts July 1st, correct? I mean,
So we won't have any help this winter then.
Well, I'm not
depends on,
sure.
it depends on how much you're asking for and where we can
Right.
take it from.
Right, I mean, we have a budget that would allow us to do it. It just, I mean, if they're gonna charge 50 grand to do it, then we probably aren't gonna have the budget. to do
Right,
it.
that's kind of
But
what I
if
was
it's-
getting at.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, it depends on how much they want and
Right, and how
How
much
much-
of the ordinance we want to have them look
how
at.
much help we need
Right.
and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we want to start out with that commercial aspect. Pretty hot.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Shouldn't cost too much to get an expert to advise us on the commercial aspect.
When you say export, would this be like a lawyer that, or like your friend that you were talking about, someone like that? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, Bessie,
A land use planner or a lawyer. I mean, I was thinking more land use planner because.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I couldn't remember what she said, if it was, her friend was a lawyer or a
It's
lawyer. I
always
couldn't
been
remember
what we're
exactly
talking
what she
about.
said. That's why I was.
She's
said
a
her-
summer person who lives here, who knows the community and had a land use business, so I thought she was a good place to start, plus she was free.
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
that always works best.
Well, thank you all. for
Yes,
your
thank
help.
you. We know this isn't easy, but especially that last part.
No,
Yeah.
definitely not.
So can I be on the agenda month out?
Yeah,
Yep. We'll put you on
I'm not sure.
the second meeting in November. We'll plan on that.
Unless you state otherwise that you'll be unavailable, then, I mean, we can put it on the agenda, and if you don't show up, we just go to the next thing.
Table it.
It'd be helpful to just get the reports the Friday before the meeting so I can have them available for the packet.
All right.
Thanks, Wes.
Thank you, Wes.
All right, so 7A2,
Thank
do
you.
we have any appointments to the planning commission?
Well, it depends. If we do, one of them is sitting here. I had someone email, but hadn't heard back in the past. I know Banner had asked about it. I did ask MMA just to make sure there wasn't a conflict. I thought there might be a perceived conflict if someone was on with the planning board and the planning commission, where one creates the ordinance, the other one enforces, the other board, allows permits or grants permits based on the changes they made, but there is no conflict in statute, and there's nothing in our ordinance or, the town charter that would suggest there is, so I had it on, I thinking the other person would respond. I don't know if anyone out of that meeting had expressed interest or not.
But you clarified that Jeff can be on the appeals board and the planning commission,
Mhm.
so that's good. So Is that, then are you joining the planning commission then officially? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. It was on there generally, banners here. If you, at one point. you get that.
No?
That's a strong.
It's great
no.
having that link between the two boards, and he's been
Yeah.
attending as just kind of like a liaison. And it's very helpful to have that perspective, because they do run into challenges at times. Yeah, well, how is this to be interpreted? And so it's helpful because they're trying to tell an applicant, well, no, you need this, or actually there's a gap there. We don't have the information we feel we should have, and they see it from a little bit different view.
Okay,
I guess there are none at this point.
so there are none, so we'll move on from 7A2 to 7A3, Sea Level Rise Committee. Are there any appointments?
Yeah, Marsha Cleveland would like to join the Sea Level Rise Committee.
Who is that?
Marsha Cleveland.
And someone just got off, right? Didn't we just accept someone's resignation? Not today, no, not today. I was thinking we just
Who
had
is this
one.
person?
Her name is Marsha Cleveland. She was on our broadband committee for a while early on. She's a property owner out here, I think year-round resident now, maybe.
I have no idea.
Well, if she wants to be on the Sea Level Rise Committee and there's a seat, I say we appoint her.
Yeah,
I have no problem with that.
I
Make
just-
the motion.
no clue.
As long as there is a seat available, I take it. I make a motion, we appoint Marsha Cleveland to the Sea
Second.
Level Rise Committee.
Seconded, all those in favor? All right. 7B, ambulance billing report.
Just sharing just a snapshot of their activity for the last quarter, July through September. It's nice that the first day of every month we get the report. Previously we had not, so it's refreshing to get that in a timely manner. The report we get's more thorough and expanded and has information that's not public information. So, but seeing that monthly is helpful because we can pick up on things that need to be dealt with quicker. Whereas before it might have been 4, 5, 6 months before we got those reports, and then it was kind of too late to.
What is it? What are the adjustments? That's just what the insurance company says they'll pay, and then we suck it up.
In some cases, that was some of the clarification we had to have with them, just to understand. So we have a billing write-off policy, and they have that. So they're kind of gonna go back through and make sure that they've been billing, just to review, and it's kind of like an audit on it, make sure that they're billing appropriately, that they're covering. I think we were noticing that some of the transportation fees might not have been included in some of the runs, like the plane or the boat, and so we're going back through to make sure that that was happening. If not, it'll likely get rebuild. They said they have, in most cases, within 12 months, to resubmit, which I missed something. So we're going back through that. And the collection policy also includes, after so many attempts for billing, that's where it'll eventually, if not paid, or there's no payment plan set up, or it's not what Medicare could cover, and there's a balance due, the rest would fall into that category of, okay, we gotta collect, and so we're left with no other means but for them to go to collections, and they kind of do those in batches. Sometimes it's effective, sometimes that's not. Our challenge before was it wasn't being done in a timely, none of it was being done in a timely manner, so we're left with big question marks as to how are we doing. We only would get it at the end of the year when we had to close things out. So this is helpful, still working through with the new company, the kind of kinks to it with them, but and we are slowly still trying to work with, to make sure that the boat costs as part of the ambulance run are something that are billable, and we can start to hopefully see reimbursements for, because we don't always get a chance to legally bill those.
Oh, okay.
So it's something that we've reached out to.
So we don't have any, that beginning balance, and it's only decreased by the 300. We don't really have a good view of what that balance was in prior quarters or years.
This just represents that particular quarter, I believe.
And this is the new company that's handling the billing.
Sorry, so it shows, this is just their activity. So that previous balance, that 22,386.
Yep.
So for that quarter, it was almost like a net zero between what was
Right.
collected and billed. So that's what their activity is. There is previous AR, account receivable from the other company.
Yeah,
I don't have that number right now,
Okay.
but we are still trying to, that'll be part of our audit. this
I was
year.
just curious if we knew like what our AR balance is typically and how long,
Yeah,
what the days outstanding and all that aging.
yeah, I think it's over 100,000.
We have over 100,000 outstanding.
I think so.
Okay.
I think I'm confident in saying
It's
that.
okay, it's okay.
How old is that balance? Next question.
So some of those balances on that previous company, which was part of our ongoing challenge, was, I think, I want to say there was some on it that was old as 2016.
Yeah, see,
Mm.
that's
Um,
not
Yeah.
good.
And so, you know, again, we
That was
have
a
this
bad
policy with them. It's supposed to come forward every so often, so we don't have such long outstanding balances. Collections might not always be successful in getting the money either.
Right.
Our only other option at that point is to decide to write off or go to small claims.
Right.
It is a lot of money outstanding, and we know that we don't always, we know that we don't get majority of the expenses back on that department, but.
So what's the name of the new company, Andy?
Medical reimbursement services, I think it's called.
Because this is like the first time we've seen any report like this.
It's the first time
I've been on the
I've
board,
given, yeah,
right?
it's the first time I've given it. It was just fresh. It came in not that long ago. We were just had a meeting about it with Pat and Darlene and I. And
So do you get a report like this every month
Yes.
now?
Yep.
Okay, good. That's good to know.
yeah, it's been great getting that. And then again, we usually get 8 or 9 pages, and we did talk to them, and they're going to give us even another report that helps us see the breakdown of each run and the costs billed for each part of the run.
Okay.
So we can also make sure that it's.
So we gotta at least build break even, don't we? I mean,
So this,
no, we don't have to.
We don't know, we don't have to. Like North Haven, for example, I think only bills, or at least has been, I don't know if they've changed it. Generally only bills, I think, if there was an expense with the boat. Otherwise, the rest of it, it's generally covered through their operating budget. I think our budget's like 230,000 or so for the ambulance to run for the year. Wages and the transportation costs are our biggest unknown but expense. We have to pay up front for the plane fees and the ferry service fees, and hopefully get those covered in the billing. So we have to account for 100 trips a year at $700 to $1,000 sometimes. So if we're fortunate, I think, you know, we usually come, it's so inconsistent, but it's usually in the last 5 or 6 years, it's been between about 55,000 and as much as, I think, just over $100,000 in the year. But it's pretty inconsistent, has been.
sorry, the 55 and 100 is
What we get,
What
we get back.
is income for each year.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're covering anywhere from a quarter to half.
I remember we had this discussion when we do the revenue on the budget, and it's usually be pegged as 75, because that's like right in the middle, and some years we get less and some years we get more usually. I mean, I think the first year I was on here, we got like 40,000 or 50,000. It was lower than what we thought, but then the next year we had like a 25,000.
So on the outstanding 100, that's just for that other company, or does that include this
Just
22?
the other. one.
That's so, we really have about 122,000 outstanding
Probably.
for AR. Okay.
But the other company, that's what is left in arrears from that.
During the time they were.
They
But
still
they,
have to-
but
they
they,
still have
they
to
get
try
a
to collect it,
percentage of
don't
that,
they?
I assume, right? when
That's
they
how the
collect it.
contract works, is they bill, they get a
So
percentage.
if they don't get any of it back, then
They're out.
They-
running.
they
We're
don't
still
get
left, we're
money.
still left with the, what do we do with those patients that haven't during that? I mean, we went through a similar when the Camden first aid or Camden ambulance kind of went out. And that's when we transitioned to that company that were with. They're out of business now, the company we were
The
using.
previous one, I would not be surprised.
So there's no one there to call at this point, really.
Okay. So that 100 is pretty much gone.
It's still, some of it's still collectible. It just, we need to get a better handle on what it is. You know, there might be some cases where it's just too far gone to be able to do. We might just say, I mean, the board might decide, you know, we're just not gonna go after someone who has a bill from 2016 at this point. But we will for the past, say, 3 years, maybe. And then decide
I think
whether.
it should be more based on need than on time. frame.
I think, yeah, we
We
go
have-
after all of it, and then people come to say, well, I don't, I
Well,
have
yeah, we
financial
borrow- yeah,
hardship,
we
and
always-
I can't make this.
But we
payment,"
have-
then
but
it's a
we
different
have-
story.
And that goes with them, as long as the company's doing their job.
We had,
The statement-
released some ambulance, I know we've done
Right. The
4 or
statement,
5 in the last 2 years.
the statement's supposed to give them clear direction that they can set up a payment plan. And if someone is making an effort to make a payment, we're not gonna go, we have not gone after them in the past.
Right,
It's the ones that don't respond.
Yes.
And what you're left with, what do we do? And if they can't afford it, we do have a hardship waiver policy. And then they can submit and prove that they, they don't have the means to do so.
Right.
And then you guys consider that an executive session.
right.
The previous company isn't liable in any way.
I don't know.
Well, the previous company's gone, right? Isn't that what you said? They're,
Well, gone, but not forgotten.
well, the AR is
And
still there, but
who knows how
if
many
they no,
other
if they no longer
creditors they have
exist
on
as a
their-
company, they're no longer trying to collect, right?
Well,
So
anyway.
I look
yeah.
forward to improvements with the new one. Do need to come back at some point and deal with the still other outstanding balances. that you
Yes.
see
It would be
I
nice to
guess that
clear
was
it up.
my-
I'm sure our auditors probably need us to.
I guess that was my
Right.
question.
Yeah, I want to have that cleared up as soon as
Go after
possible.
them, After her.
Okay. 7C Midcoast Economic Development District.
I didn't have a. My report. Yet, so I'll just pick up here on that. So we just had the first of a 2-part workshop around strategic planning for the organization. And so this was on the heels of looking for a new executive director for that. So I'll step back. I think you're aware that Knox County's taxes that we pay to them affords us membership to MCED, the Midcoast Economic Development District.
Yeah.
And so they're an entity that has resources. They have some support for looking at ordinance revisions, and they have already looked at ours and looked just only at, they have the ability to look at the inconsistencies or where we're out of compliance, if you will, with state statute, where things have changed in the last, say, 12 years. And so they did do that initial review. It doesn't get down in the weeds on home occupation, commercial use stuff unless we contract with them. And currently they don't, I guess it's an option, but they don't necessarily have, we have to really define that scope with them. So that is an option to kind of work with them. So they do services like that. They do, they're a funnel for economic development grants, federal grant funds. We worked with them to apply for some of the grants that we've applied for the downtown project. They were helping that. They're likely to help in some way in the administering of one or both of those grants. And so they provide some of that, services that way to us as member communities. They've been doing housing workshops for the Midcoast and trying to bring resources to those interested in learning more about what their options are for zoning or what solutions have been tried somewhere else, among other things. And so the strategic plan for the organization is on the heels of trying to hire a new executive director where they had retired. They actually had offered the job and then pulled that back and said, we really should be doing a strategic plan to figure out what is MCED, where are we heading, what do we want to focus on. Midcoast area lost its regional planning commission a few years ago, so that land use agency that helped us with our comp plan years ago, the land use challenges that towns have, like, they're gone. And so this group's kind of sort of picked up that slack, and so now there's trying to figure out, is the agency going to be more economic development focused and help bring jobs and stimulus to the Midcoast area? Do we want to be more of a land use planning, an equal part of both? And so I think that strategic plan is going to help focus in on what they want to see it become in the next few years or where they want it to go. And then that'll help better inform who they're looking to hire, what skill set they want to have from someone they're going to hire. And I know this is something that comes up with the county, so I don't know where this will fall this year. The county's just starting its budget process. I haven't seen the draft yet, so I don't know if it's proposed to continue paying all the town's dues. I know there's a couple of folks on the commission and the budget committee that kind of question, are our towns getting the value out of it by us paying the membership to the county?
Well, for a few years, we weren't.
It's been a long time since we had directly. I think it is advantageous for certain things. I mean, we've been more active in using them in the last few years. that I'm assuming we still would have, I'm assuming we still would have because of our downtown project. We definitely did because we were a member.
Right.
Through Knox County. So I mean, I know we've seen some value in that.
What's the membership fee, you know?
I don't off the top of my head, I know it had been based on population. It was so much per year-round resident in your community, and they used the census data to, for that. It wasn't huge. We honestly probably pay more through the county tax bill because it's based on valuation
Right.
instead of population. Our share might even be less if we go the other way. So that's just something to be aware of. They do provide a benefit to us that we use them to our Main Street project and other things.
Yeah, I would think for the next few years, we probably want to still be a part of it. And if it's gonna be cheaper than what we pay as a proportion of the county taxes, then I would think we would just go ahead and do it, but.
Yeah, but I don't think our county taxes are going down.
Oh, I know they're not, but if they decide to cut that out, we as a town can still.
Oh, yeah. No, I know,
Flip
what
the
you're- I know
bill
what
for
you're
that,
saying.
yeah.
I'm just saying, I don't believe that.
Oh, they're definitely not gonna go down.
No.
Yeah, there was an article, they did present this on a first, on a first crack at it with department heads and with the commissioners, and I think the budget committee's first meeting is next week, I believe. But the preliminary numbers are,
Yeah, I imagine they are, just like everything else.
Ugh. Crazy.
Okay. 7D we already did, so we'll move on to 7E road commissioner report.
I assume since we're getting this report that they finally have the internet and everything running up there. I think we got one last week on Tuesday.
Mhm.
So everything's done up there now. The mold issue I saw was taken care of.
yeah, I think the only outstanding things we have to do is we have to get the air compressor running still. I did get the permit, I think it's on my desk from yesterday, I think that the permit for the fuel tank has been approved with the state, so we can get that filled up instead of going down. And we still need, ideally, we still get some sort of portable stair system to safely get access to mezzanine and the second floor up there for storage. We looked at a couple online to buy, and the stair units themselves, it cost more to ship them than it was to purchase the stairs. And the stairs cost $2 to $4 grand, and the shipping was more than that. So we didn't buy them at that moment. It literally, I said it would literally be cheaper. I told the guy, it would literally be cheaper for us to pay someone to go on a few day vacation and go pick it up. So he said, that's the lowest, like, he lowered a little bit, but it wasn't enough time to, the budget to be able to do it. So that is the only other outstanding thing I think up there that we'd like to do.
The salt sand shed building, is that all completed and ready to go?
Mhm.
Okay, good.
We just gotta load it up.
Awesome.
Still trying to figure out the particulars and logistics of getting it here. Proc, last time they reached out, they had let me know that they didn't have the big barge. They do have the smaller barge. They have to do it in 4 trips instead of 2.
Do we have anything left over from the prior year?
There is, I think Dan said there's 100 or a little over 100 yards down there, maybe.
Are they moving that up there or are they leaving it where it is?
We talked about, I think it's gonna right now stay down there.
Okay,
The stuff we'd be able to get would be finer, and we wouldn't want to mix it with that. That should be a good thing. We should be able to get a finer material, so there shouldn't be rocks generally in it that have been a challenge in the last few years with tires and such. That would be a better product because it's going to be dry.
good.
We did that a few years ago. I don't know if you remember, we bought it through JBI, the finer product that most towns will use at use covered storage. And because it's been raining so much each winter, it was Eric, I think, had said in one of the meetings, he went down there to fill up a fish tote and it was just muck. It just because we had to buy bonier or larger sieve product. There was bigger rocks in it.
Right. Okay.
So we don't intend to mix it necessarily, but we just gotta see once we get it filled up with what we purchased this year, we'll see where we're at.
Okay.
But presumably they'll really use that stuff off this winter, the stuff that we already have on hand, just to get rid of it.
They
Right.
can.
And hopefully we'll start seeing savings with the shed. That'll help pay for
Won't promise it'll necessarily pay itself back anytime soon,
No,
but
no,
it should be a
anytime soon.
better application on the road.
Right.
You can imagine trying to get that wet sand out of those, the spreaders, it just kind of plops
You
out
should
of
be able to
there.
go further with what we
Right.
purchase, right? And
That's the understanding.
that means we could have some left over in theory if we did it right, or
Or we shouldn't have to use as many truckloads.
trips. Yeah,
for-
exactly. Okay.
What's all this activity with horse poop?
for the-
I know what it's for, but, is that part of the grant money in any way, or?
I think the trip cost, for the ferry ticket, I believe, is covered still through the grant.
And it
Charge-
takes,
We don't charge the labor off to the grant.
but it takes two people to go. Yep.
It has,
just
I
checking.
can ask.
Yes.
And that's what they have.
Any other questions?
I'm sorry, I don't think that's the time. for that. It's driving me nuts. I can't look at all that. Oh, jeez. Oh, gosh.
All right, move on to 8, old business, 8A, downtown master plan, Main Street improvements update.
This is for Eric and he's not even here.
So Gabe is drafted, looking for feedback from the board. The intention is to, we did put something minor in the wind, letting folks know that there'll be some engineers and surveyors out looking at multiple projects that we've signed work orders for. And then wanting to get something out to the stakeholders in the community, for your feedback on making sure that that's generally covering what you'd like. And then the last page. Sorry, I didn't print landscape, or landscape. The last page is
All the
kind
funding.
of the funding that's been committed.
So when it says awarded and the other ones say committed, we still don't know for sure we're getting that money, or what does that mean at the top?
That's what the Arpa Funds, right?
So at the very, very tippy top,
Right, so they've
it
been
says
awarded, so
committed,
those
committed,
are,
committed.
those are grants, the other ones are reserve funds or the water district saying we're committing the funds.
But I thought
to
the main DOT thing was a grant too, and it says committed, so I was just curious what the difference was.
you. I guess, yeah, my.
But those are definite, right? Those two that say awarded,
Awarded and
so they
committed.
should say, that's basically all the same then, right? All those funding sources.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious if there was some way they could screw us and take them back.
I had a
Not as-
question on so the project, extensive infrastructure construction project in and along the 0.6 mile long corridor spanning from the ferry terminal to Water Street.
Mhm.
So what are we doing from the ferry terminal? Is that just the
Sidewalks.
sidewalk?
Sidewalk
Okay.
drainage, potential for sewer
Okay,
extension.
we will need to. Do we have a sidewalk ordinance? Because we're gonna need one, because people don't use them as they are now. If we're gonna spend all this money and all this time to build sidewalks and people don't use them, it's gonna drive me even more nuts than it already does now.
Right, we talked about this
So
before because
we need to have a sidewalk ordinance, and there needs to be fines, and there needs to be a way to enforce it, which again is gonna
Right.
be the problem, but
So there's probably some state statutes that would apply, like if you're, I believe you're supposed to walk on a certain side of the road if you're a pedestrian walking on the road. And if you cross without a crosswalk, that's considered jaywalking, I believe. So it would come back to enforce, I don't know that, I'm just saying, I don't know that it requires
okay,
a sewer use or a sidewalk use ordinance.
probably not. How about at least we
I
have some
hear
sort of
ya.
signage down at the ferry boat before
Right.
people exit the parking lot, use the sidewalks.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
you're gonna
we
be in
talked about
violation.
that, and we talked about
Or you're probably
the
gonna get yelled
cop
at.
having ticket books for people who, to enforce
Right,
not using the sidewalks.
the shit, it sounded like
Or the
Knox County
parking or
would
the
be willing to
quarry.
do that.
Right,
Yes.
That was something they're willing to do. If we get the ticket books and whatnot, they can issue
Like
those
parking on the
citations.
wrong side of the road.
I
Somebody
remember
pulled,
parking we talked about. I don't know
somebody
that
pulled
I
in front of
remember.
me the other day to go to the bank, crossed the road, parked on the wrong side of the road as I'm going.
Yeah.
You know, that
Yeah.
is my, but back to the signage. a sign saying pedestrians must use sidewalks and no bicycles allowed
On the sidewalk,
ridden.
right, ridden on the sidewalk.
Because a man looked at me past summer, and he and his son, and I said, I'm sorry, no sidewalks, no riding bicycles on the sidewalk. And he looked at me and I thought he was gonna rip my head off. He was, and I just said, it's the way it is. And he was,
It's in the name, it's sidewalk, walk on them.
yeah,
No
exactly,
Riding of vehicles or bikes or whatever. It's-
like parking your car on the sidewalk. Another,
Okay,
okay, sorry. That's a little tangent there.
otherwise, I mean, I just want to clear up, what do we need as a town to provide for funds? Is it this 325,000? Is that what we still have to come up with?
So those are the estimated project budgets there for each, so the EDA one was the bigger of the two. And then the northern border, so we're still finalizing scope of work for northern borders. But this is what we've through the selectmen's meetings committed. And so, yes, that's what we've got to.
Because the total-
But it's not saying we have to raise, and it's just generally showing what's been approved by the select board so far.
Okay,
So all the money's sitting there in the reserve as far as I can understand it, or it will be when we fund this summer.
Right, so if you take the 325 and you see that there's 250, the kind of that table below there shows our reserve fund.
Yep.
What the audited amount for FY20 was.
Yep.
What the appropriated number was for FY21 and the current FY22. And so those add up to a total of 1.44 million in reserve.
okay.
We've committed through your votes those amounts
About 1 point,
up above the 1.103 from the town, the sidewalk and road, and the 88 from the harbor reserve to when we applied for the northern borders to help replace that boat launch. If we take the 325 and the 255 that has that remaining balance, the 255, I think it's like 70 grand. Just under the 70,000, I believe.
I guess all I'm getting at is, whatever we put in the wind, if it's another updated number, I just want it to be clear, like what we still have to come up with as a town to complete this whole project, I guess. is
Right.
my- And it doesn't sound like we're gonna need to request additional funds from the community, right? At this point, we should have everything in reserve. Is that, do I have that correct? Or we're up 70K or something?
We're off about 70.
70.
You still need to consider appropriating that harbor reserve. If you don't appropriate that harbor reserve, there's about $200,000 there.
Okay.
So again, some of this will depend, whether the fund you consider taking it from still depends on what scope we solidify. So
Okay,
I say we're still trying to solidify that because we still have two other sources of funding that we don't know about yet.
okay,
There's the congressional funding. Both Senator King and Representative Pingree have submitted our requests to Appropriations Committee.
so two potential,
Two
Additional-
more potential sources of funding.
those
Those
both
sources,
over $1 million, right?
they are both over $1 million.
Okay.
So those sources, if we were to be awarded those, for even one of them.
Yep.
Those scopes of work are pretty narrow as to what they can fund. It's clean water and drinking water programs through the EPA. And so they're very narrow. So we're still working with Northern Borders to try and understand exactly if we were to get one or both, if we weren't to get either of them, how does that change the scope of work?
Okay,
What we had set out in the downtown master plan was kind of like a larger list of projects. And we're trying to figure out how to maximize the funding sources and what we're
right.
getting. So currently with just those two, the EDA and Northern Borders, the reserve funds, the water district, and the DOT funding, that's kind of what that reflects.
Okay,
It may change if something else comes in from those other two funders. It would change if something comes in from those other two.
do we
funders.
have any idea when we'll hear about that?
Probably whenever they stop fighting in Washington.
So never, so never.
So they're on a continuing resolution, if I got that right, with their budget. That runs out December
First.
3rd, I think, first, third, something
Yeah.
somewhere in there. So it could be as long or as short or longer than that, depending on how they do with the federal budget.
Okay.
So that's, we're not entirely sure yet. So it is, I mean, it's not, nothing's set in stone yet. I mean, there's still a lot of particulars about the actual work and getting down into the community input that still will be needed on certain parts of it. This is a very higher level view still of trying to figure out that admin portion, drawing a nice circle around what we're gonna accomplish.
Okay.
But it does right now with only those two major grant sources, leave us with 70,000. If you consider and appropriate all of the harbor reserve towards what we're doing, when we submitted Northern Borders, we only had one boat launch. Now we're looking at trying to get both of them done with this project during this project scope.
Yeah.
As well as improvements to the fish plant project.
Yeah.
And so that would be the consideration for you for using the harbor reserve, because that's in part what we created for,
Right.
to make improvements in the working waterfront stuff. So there's a large amount there to consider. We also have the ARPA funds that came to American Rescue Plan Act through the state. There's about 119,000 there that can be used, again, narrowly. There's a lot of ways it could be used, but sewer, wastewater, and water infrastructure is some of that. There are other ways it could be utilized. That's something that we need to consider as the rules still are interim final. They're not final yet, so they're still continue to change a little bit. So hopefully they finalize those soon enough, so we'll know for certain what it can fund, so we aren't in jeopardy of having to pay something back. So that's something that could be considered as well.
Okay. Yes.
When I was on the downtown master plan committee, we talked a lot about age friendly and making sure the sidewalks were friendly for elderly people as well as children, and having the proper cutaways and slopes so people can get in and out of the stores. And I'm concerned, I don't think there was ever a resolution about where Jeannie's store is or the restaurant, Sandbar. And those are two places that a lot of people want to go. A lot of older people can't get into Jeannie's store, and it's the only store where they could shop on this island for various things. So I'm hoping that that's part of the mix for the sidewalk. I think it's really critical. We have the oldest population in the country per capita on Vinalhaven. And a lot of older people, even in the assessment, talk about how things aren't accessible to them and they have to move to the mainland. So anything we can do to make the downtown more usable for them and pleasant and a good community to live in. There may be money under the American with Disabilities Act or grants or something to make these things happen. I just want to make sure that's not lost in the mix.
Okay. No, that's,
So I'm assuming all sidewalks have to have those braille things, like the metal things, so like if you're
Right.
walking with a walker, and they'll have to be, I mean, so wide. I mean, we talked about this on different sidewalks. There's a standard width and how you can get off of them and onto them. So if we do any work to sidewalks, they'll have to be
compliant.
done compliant with all those things that you just asked for.
But what about on the side where Jeannie's store is and the restaurant? Is that part of the mix? Because I remember hearing before that wasn't even under consideration.
I
So
thought,
I'd reference our downtown master plan.
I
and I'm
thought it
pretty
was
certain it
all the
was
different-
included in there, but that's something that will be solidified. And I'm pretty certain it was included as I know it was definitely mentioned in the master plan.
they had that intersection in there.
But that phase of getting into the details of like exactly and what feedback we still are gonna need before making final decisions, that's still gonna be a process that needs to be created before final decision is made on design. So there will be room for more input still. And I know it's a consideration and a concern that was raised.
Well, it was in the downtown plan. I know we talked about it a lot in the whole age-friendly concept. Thank you.
So if those sidewalks are added in there, there'll be no more parking out there, correct?
Potential. I mean, it's not certain, but I mean, I think that was part of understanding like there's multiple purposes, needs, and then reasons for, how it's able to be used. So it's something that,
There's just so much more parking on that side of the street as well as on the other side of like Clamshell Alley, like it's just not safe in my opinion.
that intersection in particular, I believe is I'll just say it's unanswered. It's an intentional, I believe an intentional, we need to have more input on this in particular, that intersection. Because of its openness and it's just not, doesn't really meet the standards that you'd expect for an intersection. So I know that that is one that has been identified in the plan as something that needs to be improved.
Okay.
Again, if anyone hasn't seen it, the downtown master plan on our website, very thorough, lot of input, a lot of work over multiple years, great document. That is our,
It hasn't
Guiding-
changed since we approved it, that's it.
that's our guiding document for this downtown improvement. Again, lots more information will be coming to the community. We'll flesh out the public outreach and involvement process for that. We've been emphasizing and focusing on replying to the grantors to make sure we button all of that up with them. Without the funding, it doesn't happen.
Right, no, let's get the funding squared away, then we'll move on to the next phase, which is preparing and then actually doing it, so. Okay. Anybody else, any other comments or questions on that? Seeing none, we will move on to 9. 9, new business, road closures. We already did this, didn't we?
We had a
Yes.
public
No, we have to
hearing.
vote
Oh,
on
now
it.
we have to vote on, okay.
I say we take all except for Bayview Cemetery. And close them.
for when
Oh,
we-
how do you say it?
No,
Close to
don't-
winter
don't
maintenance.
maintain. Close to.
Close to winter maintenance, I guess is what I should say. We'll strike Bayview Cemetery Road. I mean,
Yes, second.
it sounds like if there's a first responder living down there, we can't really.
Well, if there's someone living there year round, I'm
Yeah,
not
I
gonna
mean,
say we're
even
not
if it
gonna
wasn't a
plow it.
first responder. we should
Right,
still
you
plow
still
it.
have to plow if someone living down there, so,
Alright.
all right, so first, I mean,
Second.
moved, seconded, all those in favor, any discussion? No, all those in favor? All right. 10, report of town manager.
All right,
Did you find out how far off we are on with the personnel? I know you haven't gotten there yet, but did you ever reach out to see how far below our pay is below like other towns of our size? Did you ever find any of that information?
I think I've had 6 or 7 towns respond. I put a little survey out to the email, like listserv group with managers. So I'm hoping for more.
Is that something that you could report to us for the next meet, maybe, so we could maybe,
I plan on reporting it. I can't necessarily guarantee that.
Okay.
I don't know how, I mean, if it's only 7, that's not gonna be great data. I mean, there's only one from Knox County, and all the rest of them are in other counties and mostly much bigger towns. So it's not, right now, that data set, my hope is that I have a good response as we enter budget season in particular. But if I have a good data set, I'll definitely
okay.
provide it. It's so far with so few, it's kind of all over. So on the, just generally on the admin side, I talked at the last meeting about possibly altering our hours. Here, I've talked to Darlene and Debbie, and we hadn't decided anything yet. That's something that still may or may not be on the table. Downtown, just cover the downtown improvements. Still have had no applications for the 3 positions we have available. I mean, I need to spend more time finding newer ways to, I guess, share that information. We continue the data Jake was talking about is something that's gonna inform, if there's other ways we can encourage, entice, attract someone to come work for us. That's another way to come at this. So far, no.
Is there a way that, like, if we had someone that lived on the mainland that could come out here 3 days a week and work from home 2 days a week, is that something that we could think about offering too? Or is that not something someone could do from home? Any part of that work?
Depends on the job.
Yeah,
We have a public works foreman, an ambulance director, and this town clerk, deputy clerk's position.
Deputy clerk would be the only one I see.
Yeah, I don't know that the foreman's thing would work in that way. Ambulance director, if it was only the admin part, could work, but it's not. It's really more to get someone available during the on-call daytime stuff, 5 days a week at least, so. That we talked about it with the ambulance directors, or a way that we could shorten it to like a 4-day work week and have them, by understanding, be available more into the evening hours on those 4 days, but kind of went away from that.
With the current hours 8 to 5, is that correct?
For
8 to 4. Okay.
Wait, for what?
The
Here.
Current office hours here.
7:30 to 5.
Okay.
There's quite a bit in the morning. You can imagine opening any business that, I mean, I've been thinking that, you know, maybe it should be more like 8 to 5. I mean, we have one that's usually here till about 5:30, give or take, and one that's usually here as early as 7:30. And there's usually on either end of the day, right? And that's, we need to have the time to be able to open up and close down.
Right.
But we're still generally 7:30 to 5.
Okay.
Let's see. Been good to have an increase in volunteers. We've been improving things, just noting that it's great to see that. Folks are getting more interested in some of the committees. The offshore wind, it was new to me. I don't know if anyone else has heard BOEM. I don't know if it's the Bureau of Office Energy Management, Ocean and Energy Management, I assume, I think is their acronym. They're the ones, they're the agency responsible for identifying these sites for energy in federal waters. And they have presented within the last few weeks a timeline. If you maybe recall, the current White House administration has set a target for X number of, I think it's gigawatt or I think it's gigawatts of wind energy by 2030. And so with that is anticipated a timeline, an aggressive one perhaps, to identify all the major, like the Northern and Southern Pacific along the Atlantic seaboard and in the Gulf of Mexico, 7 sites, 7 areas of ocean generally in the US to have lease sites identified and for sale. The Gulf of Maine, of course, is one of them. We don't know how big of an area yet. There's a multi-year process for that. From the time it's identified to posted for purchase to development to installation. We're last on the list in the Gulf of Maine in that larger timeline of all the areas. You know, I think it was looking like 2023, I think is what they were estimating, mid to late 23, I think is what it was for proposed lease sites to consider.
Which is
So
not
there's
that far away.
not that far
No.
away in the, but it is in the grand scheme of all the other ones, it's the furthest away. So it's happening at the same time that the state of Maine is trying to create this offshore wind roadmap, of which I, on that working group for the fisheries. And so there's kind of 2 purposes. One is to identify for the research site that they're proposing, to come up with kind of the methods, what do we need to both before, during, and after construction need to be collecting for data. How will this impact? How do we make sure we minimize the impact of the fishery and try and create a process that any developer anywhere, but particularly in the Gulf of Maine, would pick up and say, here's how we want to develop our wind site too. It's not necessarily saying assuming we're in support of it, is just saying, if it happens, here's a roadmap, we're hoping others will follow.
Is this building onto the thing that Rhoda did or any of that stuff?
It takes, so there's, yes, it does take into consideration some of that. Rhoda's come up a few times. So it's very timely, and now it kind of puts the goalpost up for this process. I think the hope now is that we move a little quicker on this process, only in the hopes that it gets out before it's too late to be considered as, you know, part of a BOEM leasing option. Things like data on where and what parts of the federal waters in the Gulf of Maine are productive and to what degree has come up. Some of the fisheries, you do have to track exactly where you were and what you caught. Some of them you don't. And so that's a big part of that equation, is to make sure that they aren't displacing large economic activity, but right now so much of it is kind of unknown. And then there's is the resource there? Questions about, are the lobsters in that area? Are there fishing grounds, spawning grounds? I mean, it's just, we haven't been collecting the data on that. So I think they're trying to call into question, how do we start doing that now? There's things like aerial surveys and trawl surveys and other things that some of the fishermen on that group have been saying, like, we need to start doing.
Yeah.
There's obviously with that the concern, well, what if we don't find that there's anything there? And then there's others saying we need to also anticipate this is good area for the species to be, even though they might not be here today, or maybe they're here today and won't be in the, some of that, there's a lot of uncertainty, but saying like, let's not give up prime habitat in the ocean for what could be good scallop beds or good, you know, whatever other
Right.
species there are. So there's a lot of consideration in that, a lot of unknown, a lot of need to collect data right now. That's kind of what they're rushing to try and figure out is what do we want to collect?
So they want to collect data and then have decisions by 2023.
The hope is that there'll be data available by 2023, so that when the lease
Okay.
sites are proposed, we can then, there's something that's available to say, well, wait a minute, this
You
isn't
can't
an
do that
area
here
that
because-
is
okay.
responsible for this part of the economy, this much of the economy.
Okay.
You can't possibly, so that'll feed the, because there'll be public comment period once the sites are suggested. And there's big money in it, so it's not, I mean, I think the ones I looked up in off the Cape, I think we're selling, the lease sites there sold for like 150 million for the rights to be able to develop it, and they still had to put the money to develop it. So I mean, it's a lot of money at the federal level. So the hope is this roadmap is something that BOEM will consider when it's doing, there's like an intergovernmental group in the Gulf of Maine that will inform the BOEM process and identifying where the lease sites could be. So that's the group, and some of those group members are on the focus group in the offshore wind roadmap process. So hopefully that'll be informative for them as they represent Maine's interests in that process.
Okay.
Meetings are public.
When's the next one?
Don't, off the top of my head, I don't know this. I can share that when it comes up. I think I shared one of those with you a couple weeks ago.
Is it monthly right now?
They had two this past month. One of them was just last week. I think the next one is early November.
Okay.
But I'll send a link to the website, the state's website that shows it. You can sign up for notifications, and like I get a text message saying, here's the link.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I think I should start tuning in those.
The sheriff was out last week. Part of what I was suggesting with the county budget, the sheriff's budget is a large portion of the increase right now that's proposed. And he was explaining some of that. There was I think a Village Soup article on that last meeting from the commissioners explaining some of the increases. One of the big ones is the contract for medical services to the jail. So providing that medical care, the current contract is expiring, and the new contracts that they have range anywhere from like a 40% increase to a threefold increase in those services. And so that's a big
That's just
portion.
for the Knox County Jail, right? Not the Warren State Jail. That's just
Right.
totally different contract, I assume, right?
That's a state,
Yeah.
state budget. And then there's, of course, the wage competing, and having competitive wages within the sheriff's patrol, and in the corrections officers. So that's a good chunk of the budget. He had kind of explained some of that. Assuming you saw the article, we will see the article if you haven't already. The other part was that the commissioners talked about the grants that we submitted for the ARPA funds. I think I submitted 5 or 6 applications, different projects. The only one that is kind of called out for consideration still is the housing above the fire station, where it would serve first responders, and identifying that, hey, we have a sheriff's deputy or 2 that are budgeted to be able to go out there, and seeing that fills it. What the commissioners were trying to do was prioritize projects that served the region. And because we're on an island, it was kind of quick. Our commissioner was good about advocating for us. Some of the other ones are saying, well, this is just going to benefit Vinalhaven, so we're not going to consider it. And Commissioner Pullman was good to push back on some of those ones.
Still part of the county. Even
That's
though we're not
right.
connected
Anything
by
they
land.
spend money on out here is
We're
maybe North Haven and Matinicus might
Right,
see
a little
minimal
bit of
benefit from it,
It's like
but I
that's-
mean, it's not gonna benefit anyone in Rockland per se.
Right. Well, and just the facilities potentially built in the Midcoast and Rockland, Rockport, Camden River, it could be built if that's what gets funded. I mean, it's not likely that the residents here would directly benefit. from
Right, exactly.
Housing.
Right,
If they did, they wouldn't be residents, and that's a hard thing for people to give up. So she was good in advocating that way for us. The other thing, one of them that we submitted is the floodplain review. I had asked for it to be a countywide review, trying to make sure that it was relevant to the.
Good.
And I estimated the price at $1 million based only on our $100,000 estimate plus or minus for
Yeah.
just us. And so that's been forwarded to Sue Baker at the state floodplain program. That was Ray just pushed that from Knox EMA. With the hope that perhaps there was enough in the science that the engineers picked up on the errors, that perhaps the FEMA would make the change themselves instead of having the county or the town.
Have they paid for it?
If there was an error in the calculations,
It seemed like pretty clear there was.
it's not right now sounding likely, but at least county resource, Ray is trying to go to bat for making that to happen at least. So
Do you think we'll have an answer on that before we get to our budget? Because if
Yeah.
we don't, then I want to put something in our budget to do.
I
it.
expect that we would have an answer as to whether the state or whether FEMA would consider reviewing it on their own before.
Okay, good. Good. Those maps don't make any sense whatsoever.
That's it.
All right. 11 reported members.
I'm good.
Jake,
I can't think of anything. I don't think so. Obviously, nothing that comes to mind.
already. 12, I move, we adjourn.
Second,
All those in favor?
thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for
So I assume
coming.
we're just meeting in 2 weeks. We didn't say that.
Oh, right.
Sorry. We have to do that within the meeting.
No, you can
Okay,
Because
call.
we only have to post it 48
Chair, you
hours
can call.
before, right? Is that right?
That's when the big storm comes, so
Oh, I can call, all right, we're not gonna meet till 2022 then. No, the 9th and 23rd, that would be the standard,
That
every
would
2
be the
weeks.
standard.
Right, that's the, yeah,
ninth
because
and the
that's
23rd.
election,
Yeah, we
and that's a
definitely,
week,
and we definitely don't wanna meet that day.
right?
I would say the 9th and the 20th. At least plan on meeting the 9th.
9th and the 23rd would be, that's,
good to see you. Thanks for
Okay,
coming.
we'll post that on the website tomorrow, just so it's up there, and then the agendas as normally done.
okay. If we have to make
I mean,
change to the
visit this.
23rd, then we'll change that one, because that is the week of Thanksgiving, isn't it?
Yeah.
So maybe we
Could we,
definitely put up the 9th, how about that? And we'll determine at the 9th whether we meet the 23rd or the 30th, I guess will be the next
Okay.
one. All right.
Well, I'm definitely not gonna be anywhere on the 20th.